So, hello? Yeah. How's everyone? Oh, come on. You can do better than that. Jeez Louise. You guys act like it's a funeral or something. Did you have a good week? Tell me about your week. How'd the Astros do? How many of you watched that baseball game when they won? That, if you want to watch, just watch the last inning of that game. I don't watch a whole lot of baseball anymore, but that has to be one of the best innings I've ever seen. How many of you that saw it agree? I mean, how many of you cried when the Yankees hit the home run to tie it in the ninth? Tell the truth. And how many of you went berserk when Altuve hit the home run? And how many of you knew the instant he hit the ball, it was a home run? Yeah, crazy what that little rascal can do with a baseball. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Bam Bam. You know who Bam Bam is on the Flintstones? Right? He walks around with that big thing, right? That's what Altuve looks like to me. He goes, bam, bam, boom. Bada boom, bada bing. It was fun. Any of you going to the World Series? You got a ticket. Which game? Tomorrow night. You have a great time. I went 2 years ago to one, Game 5. It was fabulous. It's an experience. Game 5 with the Dodgers. That was the best game. Yeah, I was at that game. It was just fluke that I was happened to be at that game, but it was. I stayed the whole time, man. It was a long time. Yeah, it was a long time. My girlfriend was like, "We got to go." I was like, "Are you crazy?" I said, "No." Plus, I kept reminding her how much I paid for those tickets. She goes, "Okay, we'll stay." Yeah. No, it was exciting. Yeah, it's going to be a great series. I think. I guess everybody in here thinks the Astros are going to win. So much for being objective. Listen, even if you're not a baseball fan, I'm going to encourage you to watch tonight and possibly tomorrow night, because honestly, tonight and tomorrow night you have the two best pitchers going against each other that arguably almost have ever played. I mean, so you're talking about 140 years of history or so in the history of the game. The two people pitching tonight are exceptional, and tomorrow night, Steven Strasburg and Justin Verlander are also two of the best that ever pitched in the game. It promises to be remarkable. So, even if you're not a baseball fan, you should at least watch a little bit to get a feel for how good these people are. Now watch, they'll get shellacked in the first inning, but it really is a fascinating time, especially to have part of it in Houston. So I encourage you to do it. Or go down to one of the sports bars across from the Minute Maid Park. That'd be a fun way to watch some of it and kind of get a feel for what's going on in the city. It's a neat thing to do. All right, everybody signed in?
I'm having trouble signing in.
Okay. How many of you did not have trouble signing in? All of you signed in? All right. So if you have trouble, check with Osese after class and let's get you fixed up so we get you credit. All right, so let's talk a little bit before we talk about gaming. We've had a lot going on. You had your exam. The mean on this second exam was right about the same mean it was on the first, maybe a little higher. I was hoping for quite a bit higher, so I was a little disappointed in that. The upper echelon grades were good. Still had some grades in the lower tiers. So look, if you're disappointed in your grade on the first exam and the second exam, what do you need to do? You know, not more. You need to study differently than you did for the first two. Look, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, hoping for a different outcome, that's the definition of insanity. Fairly bright guy figured that out by the name of Einstein, or it's attributed to him. But look, you have to do things differently. So learn from this. Let's don't let it be a situation where we just do the same things and go do it. Study differently, right? Look at the book differently. Get back, spend more time with the book. Create flashcards with the book. How many of you study with other people? That could be an issue. Studying with other people will really enhance your grade. talking about it. It's the reason why in law school everybody gets together and studies together. It's because somebody understands, somebody does, they can help each other. Try to create a little study group. It will really make an impact for you. None of you study with anybody else? That's an interesting fact of life. The millennials are taking over. You guys millennials? We talked about this. You're not? You don't identify with a millennial? You identify with teenagers? What do you identify? Whatever that realm is, I have no idea what it is. I've been reading a lot about millennials lately. We're in trouble. Well, we're in less trouble than we're with my generation, but it's going to be interesting. You guys don't have a sense of humor this morning. Okay. Well, in any event, the other thing I want to suggest you do, how many of you exercise? Work out. All right. Well, if you don't work out, I'm going to encourage you to work out. And let me tell you why. When you're working out, what is traveling to your brain? Oxygen. Yeah. Endorphins are driving lots of oxygen-rich blood to your brain. What do you need to think? What does your brain feed on? Oxygen, right? So the time where your brain is getting flooded with oxygen is when you want to study. So go get on a stationary bike with your flashcards or your book and do it that way. Or on the treadmill. Just don't fall off the treadmill. Or if you do fall off, don't say, my professor told me to do this. But that is when you will learn the most. Or go do your yoga class, or a hot yoga class in particular. I'm not a huge fan of those, but every now and then do a hot or Bikram yoga class, and when you come out of there, sit down and study. You'll be amazed at how creative and motivated you'll be, and you'll also be amazed at how much thinking you'll be able to do. So I encourage you to think about studying that way. How many of you create flashcards from the chapters? A couple of you do. A couple of you do. And did you find it helpful when you took the exam? Okay, all right. You need to do it. Okay, so maybe flashcards aren't the thing to do, but spend some time with it. All right. Now, how are we doing with your papers? I've been looking at them when they come in. Sesay's been taking some time with them, and it looks like the grades to me are going really well. How's everybody feel about it? Good. Did the lady from the library come in? Did that information help you to get prepared and to find your articles? All right, good. That should sustain your entire college career, having that research capability as a foundation. So hold on to that, right? All right. How many of you found it a little challenging to summarize 2 articles in 1 page? Okay, that's the whole idea, is to be able to write, what's the word? Cogently. I want you to learn to write cogently. Cogently means concisely, but accurately. Look, when you get out and you go to work someplace, if you can't put your thoughts in a half a page, nobody's going to read it today. I know you grew up writing term papers. I know you grew up writing these long tomes that your English teachers want you to write. And that's great, and I hope you never lose that skill. But when you get into the business world today, you have to be able to put all of your thoughts cogently in a very short space. How many of you, let me just explain to you why. How many of you, when you go onto a website, you do not look past the first page when a Google search comes up? You do not look past the first returns on your search. Raise your hand. Come on. I know most of you don't. It's exactly right. You guys, look, the generation today thinks that reading is billboards, menus, and texting. Wow, nothing. That was funny. You guys, just nothing? Did you have coffee? Are they out of coffee over there? What's the problem? Well, say you got that, didn't you? Yeah, okay. So, you need to realize how important it is to write in a very brief, effective format. Got it? What's on the screen? Am I missing something? I didn't see the president there the other night. Oh, that wasn't the 50th anniversary. That was Gourmet Night. Oh, well, anyway. All right. Did any of you work at the 50th anniversary? Huh. Okie dokie. All right, well, obviously, let's go on. All right, now, so how did the think tanks go? Did you enjoy them? Did you learn a lot? You're like, not really. Did you go? You did go? Yeah? Who did you sit in on? Keynote or a panel? Great question. She says, what's the difference? The keynote is when one person stands up and speaks. That's a keynote. A panel is there more than one. Do you remember that's in the meeting chapter that we talked about in this book? Well, you remember now. Okay, very cool. All right, so which one did you go to? With the weatherman, the keynote. Oh, was it a panel? Okay, did you learn a lot? So if I said, what did you learn, you could tell me? Okay, but you don't want to do it in front of everybody. Self-perpetuating his job. All right, who else? Where'd you go? Who'd you see? Yes, ma'am. Okay, made a big impact on you, did he? Scott? Oh, Mike Paday. Okay. Mike's good. Ah. Yeah, that's a panel discussion. So very good. And he did a good, so he was the moderator of the panel. He also, or you could call him the facilitator of the panel. You got that? Okay. So it's important you kind of get these different formats for presentations. Okay, you went to one. Behind the scenes of the events, did you learn a lot? Okay. Very cool. Good for you to follow up. I like it. All right, good. Well, I'm glad you did. How many of you did not get a chance to go? Oh, more than I was hopeful. All right. Well, I appreciate making the effort, and all of you, Osese said a couple of you haven't been able to get to your post yet for your alternative assignment. If you haven't, you can still do that. Okay? Nothing magical about the time frame for that. But let's do it. All right. Now, then Thursday, you went to career fair. How many of that was your first career fair? All right, what'd you think? Yeah? With all the booths? Oh. Okay, well, who stood out for you? All right, that sounds fun. Okay. All right, good. Anybody else? What'd you really walk away with? That you need a good suit? What? Which sushi?
Yeah, there was like something after that.
And they were giving away sushi?
Yeah, they gave away sushi.
So everybody hung out at their booth? So what's that teach you? When you do a booth, what do you need to bring? You bring food, you bring something, because that excites people. Yeah? If you're just standing there and there's sushi next to you, where's everybody going to go? They're going to go to the other booth. So learn from that. You guys are easily bribed is what that means.
I was hungry. I had no choice.
That's what I just said. You were easily bribed. I had no choice. What else did you do? Who'd you like in the career fair? Come on. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Isn't that a small world? So that was fun. And are you thinking about going back to work for them? No. That's enough. But it was nice to make that connection. Small world. Good for you. Somebody else. Come on. How about in the back? Did you go to career fair? You didn't go? Dude. Well, you still need to go next time. Did you hear me say everybody needs to go to career fair except international students? I didn't say that. Next time. All right. Somebody on this side. Chris, did you go?
Yeah.
What'd you think? Interesting's a good word. Have you figured that out? Interesting should be your default word for everything. Your parents ask you something, what'd you think? It was interesting. It was interesting.
I did a couple. I had one Marriott.
Good. The JW or the Marriott? The JW?
And I had another one at Marriott. But they offered me to go.
Yeah.
I had to decline. They both wanted to get entry-level positions.
Yeah.
That's like Roman and they take
Yeah.
And
Yeah, Bucky. Yeah. You're like, no, you gotta get in the game. I work at Bucky's. Yeah.
Overall, the interview process was like really good.
Hey, I'm glad you got to do that. How many of you did an interview? 1, Chris, 2, 3. Nobody else? You guys need to practice your interviewing. Good for you. That's excellent. Well, I'm glad you did it. Well, anyway, I hope it was worth your while. I hope you learned a lot about putting on an event as well. You see how it works, right? That's a professional career fair. You see how that would be called what type? We looked at meetings, we looked at expositions, we looked at, right, in the chapter? What would that be called? Yeah, it was kind of a trade show, wasn't it? Except it's about careers and jobs. Yeah, very good. All right. How many of you have been thinking about what you want to do when you finish school? I know it's a ways away. What are you thinking about doing? Yes, ma'am? You're on the hotel side, the lodging side. Now, I got a note from an alum yesterday, and he's opened up a new shared stay type concept, like Airbnb. And he wanted to know if we were talking about Airbnb style opportunities here in the class. And I thought, well, I think we talk about it initially, right, as something that's competing with hotels, but we really don't spend much time talking about the career paths for Airbnb type things. But you're thinking about more traditional hotels and lodging? You like that? Now, are you organized? You need to be to do project management. It's all about timing. Same thing with meetings and events. If you want to do meetings and events, it's all about a timeline. Good. How about you? Yes, ma'am. Next. Joel Jaffe. Yeah, okay. All right. So you're related to that. Okay. The country club. Very cool concept. Yeah, listen, a lot of the neat things going on. So good. Well, I'm glad you like that. And then, yes, ma'am, you had your hand up? You've been thinking about it? Events. Good. All right, and how many of you are not thinking about it at all? Yeah, it's okay if you're not. I think there's entirely too much pressure put on young people to decide what it is you want to do with your life. So I'm not a big pressure person like that. I think this is the time in your life when you want to figure out who you are. It's hard to know what you want to do until you know who you are and what's important to you and what you love. So I would spend my time, I'm not being critical of you guys already thinking about it. I think it's great. I have a good handle on it. But just be open to change. Yes, sir. And hey, one other thing while I'm on that topic, and I'll get to you. Don't be afraid to change jobs quickly. People say, well, you need to stay at least a year. Baloney. If you get into something and 30 days into it, you say, I hate this, get out. If you gave it a chance, if you gave it a fair chance, or if you don't like the culture, get out. Go try something else. And if somebody says to you, well, it looks like you moved around a lot. Yeah, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. There's nothing wrong with that. Other people will tell you, no, you got to say you got to do this. Nah. Yes.
Like one day I want something.
Yeah.
And something else.
That's what I want to do. Yeah. That's why it's abs, because you're going to have lots of opportunities. That's why you want to figure out who you are and what's important to you, and that will help you filter those opportunities. Right? So I hope you do it. Remember I told you there's 3 key questions in life that you want to make very careful choices about. Do you remember what they are? What are you going to do? Where are you going to do it? And who are you going to do it with? And you want to be very intentional about answering those 3 questions in your life. I think I mentioned to you, one of my favorite books is Memoirs of a Geisha, Before Your Time. But the protagonist in the book, she's reflecting on life, and she says, why do most people live their life like a twig in a river that just goes wherever the river takes them, right? Some people just flow along with life, whatever happens. But a more meaningful and purposeful life comes from being intentional about your choices. You have to overcome some fear to do that. But you can do it. Somebody had their hand up. Yes, ma'am. How I got into hospitality law? How much time do we have? We got to talk about gaming. We got to talk about travel project. I'll take 2 minutes, maybe 3. I was in Lubbock, Texas. I'd gone to school in Lubbock at Texas Tech. I just loved going to school. I'd still go to school today if I could get paid to do it, which I kind of do. But I got into the restaurant and nightclub business. I was in that business in high school and junior high and elementary school. I started kind of young. So anyway, I got out there and I had a comedy club. And I was emceeing at the comedy club. And a guy came up to me after one of the shows, and he said, hey, I hear you're a lawyer. And I went, who told you that? And he said, no, I hear you're a lawyer and you're in this business. And I said, yep, that's true. And he said, I want you to come teach. I said, teach where? He said, at Texas Tech. And I said, huh, what would I teach? And he goes, you teach hospitality law. I said, I don't know what that is. How can I teach it? He said, well, it's the law as it relates to hotels and restaurants. And I said, well, that makes sense. And he said, well, you're in the restaurant business, right? And I went, yes. He goes, well, come teach the students what you know. I said, but I'm not sure. I said, is there a book? He goes, yeah. I said, really? He goes, yeah. So I said, how much? And he said, it'll be, what did he tell me? He said, $1,400. I said, per class? He said, no, for the entire semester. I said, get out of town. I said, I'm not coming over there 3 days a week for $1,400 because I was practicing law and I had the restaurants, right, and the clubs. I was busy. And I said, no, thank you. So he came back to me the next semester and he said, no, you really need to do this. He said, I'll prepare the class. I'll have the book all ready for you. All you got to do is come in and teach it. And I said, how much? And he said, $1,600. And I said, no, I'm not doing it. He said, just try it. And I happened to live across the street from campus. I bought a home over there. And so I thought, you know what, I just got to walk across the street, right? Because I officed in my home and it was pretty easy. And so I thought, okay, I'll try that. So I tried it. And he paid me $1,600, but I had like 60 students in the class. And the first week, one student got a DUI. And so they hired me to represent them. So I made like 4 times that. And then another kid got into a car accident, and I made a ton of money off of that. And then another kid's parents got into some trouble, and they referred the case to me. So I went to the dean after it was all over, and he goes, you coming back? I go, dude, I will pay you to teach. And so that's how I got into it. Yeah. I did my bachelor's. I did a bachelor's in economics, my master's in communications, and then I did my law degree all at Tech. I just loved it out there. Yeah, really? Yeah, really? Was that? Yeah, Lubbock is not my kind of place. It's a little conservative for me, but going to school out there, I just found that to be, I mean, I'd go do it all over again if I could. It was great. Yeah, made some wonderful friends and really enjoyed it. Weather's a little challenging. Dust storms. First dust storm will kind of set you back. Or do you know Lubbock? Have you been out there? Do they like it? Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that going on. But I was in the restaurant, in the club business and the restaurant business back then. So that's a neat way to go through school if some of you have figured that out, right? Yeah, and it pays well. So it was a neat time in life for sure. Yeah. So that's how it happened. She got bored. No, I'm just kidding. But the interesting thing about hospitality law, Carson and I were talking about it, is that there's really not. When I was, that was 40. It was a long time ago. But there was one guy that was writing about it, a professor at Cornell that had the oldest hotel school in the country, and then his son wrote a book for the National Restaurant Association on restaurant law. But law schools still to this day don't teach hospitality law. Hospitality law is an aggregation of all types of law. You have contract issues, you have meeting contracts, you have franchise agreements, you have management contracts, labor and employment issues, you've got liability issues when somebody slips and falls in the hotel, or somebody's assaulted at a hotel, or somebody drinks too much at a restaurant bar. Today you have human trafficking, you've got cybersecurity when there's a breach of the Marriott loyalty program, right? And 100 million people have their information breached. So there are all kinds of legal aspects, business entities, taxation, succession planning for families. It's really a remarkable area of the law. It's the only one I know of that aggregates and collectivizes all of those spaces. So that's why I like it. And fortunately for me, I guess got dragged into it and made a career out of it. And so we started about 22 years ago now, we started hospitalitylawyer.com with a great team of folks, and then wrote the textbook, that you guys will take. I assume they still use it. I don't know in the class here. But you have to take hospitality law in your curriculum. And it's a good, today with more women traveling, what's absolutely the top of mind for most female travelers today? Security, right? And so we've been trying to push that for 30 years, and it's now finally the market is shifting and saying, we want this. And so it's really become a very integral part of being in the hotel business, certainly in the restaurant business. I've been involved in cases lately where we are serving way too much alcohol. I think I mentioned that to you when we were talking about it. So anyway, that's, but I hope you'll take an interest in it. A couple of people come up to me and interested. And I typically talk to about 5 students a year who are interested in hospitality law. I'd encourage you to think about it. The whole practice of law, though, is much different than when I started practicing. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Did it in about 7 minutes instead of 3. So it's not too bad. You can't tell a lawyer to talk and then be short. So anyway, there you go. So let's talk about your travel project. Right? And we're going to modify the due dates on those, but you'll notice what we did, to be fair, is those of you that had to turn your paper in first, you get the longer time to work on your travel project. Right? And so if you had longer time on your paper, you get shorter time on your travel project. But that's, OSESE came up with a very fair way, right? All right, so the travel project. What's the whole point of this? How many of you like to travel? All right? Traveling is an education. Learning how to travel is an education. So that's why we do this travel project. I want to introduce it to you. If you've never built a complex trip, you will before this semester is over. It's a lot to think about when you think about traveling internationally. So that's the first step. It needs to be an international trip, right? And we've laid the criteria out for you in the project. How many of you have looked at it already? All right, good. So if you have any questions, stop me. But you're going to plan a trip from start to finish. Give me some things you need to think about. Yes, sir, in the back. What do you need to think about when you're planning a trip? Transportation. Got to think about transportation. Yes, ma'am. Cost. You have to have a budget. Budget's important. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Entering requirements. Visa, passport, and no, keep going down that line. Keep going down entering requirements. This is important. This will catch you up. Immunization. You've got to have the right shots in immunization. You have to, and some of those take time. Some of those are repetitive shots that you have to get. So you just can't one day go, hey, I'm going to go to Ghana. You've got to, in order to get in there. And then the other thing what trips up a lot of people, let's say you want to go to 2 or 3 countries. And you just look at the requirements if you're coming from the U.S. Well, if you go down to Lima, Peru, to go to Cusco maybe, or go to, what's the big tourist attraction in Cusco? Machu Picchu. And then you go out into the rainforest, and if you come back and then maybe you try to get into Honduras on your way back, you decide I'm going to take a stop to Honduras may not let you in. They may say, where have you traveled before here? And you say, well, I went to Machu Picchu. Oh, did you get this shot? You go, no. You go, you got to go home. You got to go back. They won't let you in the country. So these types of entry aspects are really important. So you need to be mindful of that. If you have a U.S. passport, typically you don't need a visa to get into other countries, but lots of countries have changed that now. I'll be traveling to New Zealand, Australia coming up, and last time I went, I did not need a visa, but they've implemented a visa program now for everybody. So you have to go online before you get there, and you have to apply for a visa. And it's all about money. They charge everybody a fee to come in now, but you've got to buy it, or they won't let you in. You got to turn around and go back. So the entry requirements are really important. All right, what else is important? Yep. Food. Got to think about how you're going to eat, especially if you have a restricted diet. It's important. What if you have a disability? You need to think differently about traveling. The Americans with Disabilities Act provides access to people in this country, but not every country has an act like that or a law like that. So if you are traveling and you have a disability, or you're traveling with somebody else that has a disability, you need to really explore that and research that. Very good. What else do we need to think about? Yes, sir. Weather is important. If you're going to some place in the hurricane belt, you want to be mindful of when you're traveling. Yep. You don't want to be in Japan over the last week and a half, right? What happened in Japan? Big typhoon, right? That wiped it out. So you want to think about whether or not you need travel insurance. All right? What if you were going to travel to Japan and the typhoon hit and your trip got canceled? Would you get reimbursed? Well, maybe not. If you have trip insurance, probably so. But today, even booking through a big travel agency is not necessarily a guarantee. Which big travel company just went out of business? The oldest travel company in the world, Thomas Cook, just went out of business. And so they had about 250,000 people traveling, and they were all stranded. So in this case, it was a British company, so the British government chartered planes to go get a lot of the people. But they couldn't get everybody, right? Just British citizens. Well, if you weren't a British citizen, you were stuck. If you had travel insurance, then typically they would get you back to your home. But if you didn't, who has to pay to get you back? You do. Yeah, so you want to always, if you book with a travel agency, always book with a reputable one. Yes, that has a good track record, and always think about insurance. I'm not saying do it every trip, but if you have a big trip where you have to put a lot of money up front, then I would encourage you to buy some travel insurance. It's not a bad thing if you travel a lot to buy an annual policy. So you have travel insurance for all of your trips. Yeah, and why is that? So why is travel insurance important? Not just to reimburse you for your travel. What else could happen? You lost luggage. You could get reimbursed for that. People say, well, the airline will reimburse you there. There's a limitation on how much the airline's going to give you. So insurance helps. Oftentimes, if you book it on your credit card, if you have the right card, there will also be supplemental insurance on your credit card for a rent car or for your luggage. What else? Your what? Your stay. Yeah, well, I want to think about that, but before you go there, I want to stick to insurance for a moment. What else could go wrong? You got sick. If you get injured, you go bungee jumping and the cord snaps, you break both your legs. Do you want to stay in Valley for your care? Where do you want to come? You want to get back home. Do you know how much it costs to life flight you home? You're not going to sit on a commercial jet. Not with 2 broken legs and IVs. You're going to get on a medical jet that's going to cost about 30 grand to get you home. So you've got to have insurance for that, because your health insurance is probably not going to cover you outside the country. Right? So you need to think about that. Everything changes a little bit when you're traveling for work. Yeah. But that's something you need to think about when you go to work. All right. Lots of other things. Now let's talk about the stay. What do we need to think about? First of all, we need to think about transportation, how we're going to get there, right? Take a hot air balloon, planes, trains, automobiles. You can drive internationally, go down to Mexico. Yeah, you can do that. You can drive up to Canada. All right. So we got to think about how we're going to get there. Then what do you got to think about? The stay. What about the stay? What? Currency. You've got to think about the money today. It can make or break your trip. A lot of difference in valuations. Valuations fluctuate, change. Got to think about the currency. Very good. What's the best way to get money, to get local currency? Do you want to go on the change kiosk at the airport or go to your local bank? You can do that, but it's expensive. What's the best way, typically, to change, to get the local currency? ATM. No, not a credit card. Credit card's the worst way, because they charge a high rate. ATM. But it all depends on your bank and what kind of international charge they're asking for and what the exchange rate is. So you've got to be a little mindful about that. Some people worry that the ATM won't work, which is a fair... Look, you've got to give notice to your ATM card holder that you're traveling internationally, or that you're going to be using a credit card outside of the country. Otherwise, they won't honor it. Right? So you've got to think about that. What else do you need to think about? You got to think about where you're going to stay. Today, it's not just a hotel. Today, it's Airbnb, couch surfing. Anything else? B&B, Airbnb, no. Bed and breakfast, hostels. Hostels have become huge business. How many of you have stayed in a hostel? Yeah? How many of you liked it? Did you meet some people? Large groups, so you stayed in a hostel. Yeah? So lots of different things you can do. All right? You got to think about transportation when you're there. Today it's much easier. Taxis, are they safe? Uber, probably a little safer today. Is Airbnb safer than a hotel? Probably not, except when it comes to terrorism, right? The odds of that little apartment being attacked by terrorists are pretty slim. The odds of the Marriott in Dubai getting attacked, pretty good. Well, relatively speaking, right? The odds of anybody being in a terrorist attack are about 1 in 18 zillion. So don't worry too much about it. But that is one benefit to staying in Airbnb, right? You don't have an aggregated group of people that becomes a target. Generally speaking, though, hotels are still the safer option than Airbnb. Yeah? Why would I say that? What about security? Yeah, but not all hotels have security, but you have a deadbolt apparatus inside your room that's only one way, right? You typically have a security bar, you typically have smoke alarms, you typically have a CO monitor, you have an extra several different fire evacuation opportunities. The entire building today is typically non-smoking, right? When you allow smoking in a building, the risk of fire, and particularly death from a fire, goes way, way up. So I would never stay in a building that allows people to smoke, and that's hard to find. Airbnb, especially internationally, yeah, they typically don't ban that. So yeah, a lot of reasons why hotels are still the much safer option than Airbnb today. All right, so you've got to find a place to stay. You've got to have local transportation. You've got to figure out what you want to do. Are you a tourist type, or do you just like a cultural experience and want to walk and eat? And you've got to think about food, as Carson mentioned, so yeah. And then you got to think about getting home. What do you have to get home? Passport or a visa, it's got to be valid. You got to get in. So what does that mean you want to do? What happens if you lose your passport? What are you going to do? You're going to go to the embassy or the consulate, right? And what do you need to have with you when you go there? You got to have something, because they're not going to let you in if you just walk up and go, "Hey, I lost my purse." They're going to go, "Good luck." You know how many people come to us and tell us that every day because they want to come in here? So what does that tell you need to do? You take a picture of your passport, you keep it secured on your phone, right? You have a paper copy and you keep it in your pocket, separate from everything else. And whenever you go out, you always have that with you. You also always find where the consulate is or where the embassy is. So if something goes wrong, you can get there quickly. Don't think you're going to be able to rely on your phone, your GPS, to get you there. Because when civil unrest happens, or an incident, a terrorist attack occurs, what's the first thing that typically goes down? The internet, because everybody's on it. It might take you 8 hours to get a message through, or to get a connection. So you need to know these things before you set out for your journey that day. Yep. Yeah. Sometimes you'd have to have some way to demonstrate that you are, right? But think about how much easier that would be if you whip out the copy and you show it to them, right? That's why you don't keep everything in one place on your person or in your hotel safe, right? You keep things separate, a couple of different copies. I like a digital copy on the phone. And you keep it in the cloud so that you can go to any kiosk, right, that has a computer, and you can access it and download it. Yeah? Still easier if you got it in your back pocket. All right, good. So look, the point of that, there's a whole lot to think about. And I want you to think about all of these things when you're planning your trip. There's a sample project on Blackboard. There's 2 pieces to the project. There's a written summary of your trip. And there's a spreadsheet that lays out all of the things we just talked about. Okay? So spend some time with it, but I want to give you a head start on it because they'll start coming due in about, 3 weeks or so, does that say maybe? Yeah. Yeah, so you have time to do it, and I think it'll be a fun experience for you. And then we'll talk about all the places you decided to go. Some of the kids that we've been doing this now for 3 or 4 years, some of the kids actually make the trip. So it's a lot of fun. So I encourage you to do it. Let us know if you have any questions about it. All right, let's talk about gaming, gambling. How many of you like to gamble? How many of you realize that if you gamble, you will lose? Okay, yeah, you will lose, right? There's a reason they can spend $1 billion on a casino. Yeah.
I've never lost money.
Yeah, I've never lost. That's a kiss of death, dude.
Well, I've lost, but not overall.
Yeah, not overall. All right, you're lucky. That's what you're telling us?
I've been 11 times.
All right. How many of you play poker? Yeah? You play Hold'em? Texas Hold'em? Yeah, with family. Poker tournament. That's fun. Okay. How many of you have been to Vegas? How many of you liked it? How many of you wouldn't go back? Would you go back? You go back. Okay. Interesting. I can't stand Vegas. I've gone a lot, but I don't go out. I don't gamble, and obviously I don't smoke, and that's all everybody does out there. Right? For the most part, except for you.
A bunch of shows.
I do enjoy the shows and the restaurants today. The high quality of the food is really good, but you have to go typically into a casino to do that, and that's where the smoke is, so I don't go. Yeah. You have to go? You have to go. So it's not necessarily your preference to go. Yeah. Since you're 4, your dad likes to gamble. Yeah. Which casino do you stay in? Oh, you stay in condo. You do? Oh, that's a fun, yeah, okay. It's a good, hope there's a pool at the condo. Okay, so that works for you. To each his own, or their own. Well, good for you. Does your dad win? You don't ask. Okay. You don't want to go, yeah, the casino, yeah. It's a fascinating business. How many of you are thinking about potentially working in a career in casino? Okay. And lots of opportunities. So the book takes great pains to differentiate between gambling and gaming. Can somebody distinguish it for me? Gambling and gaming entertainment. Yes, ma'am. Gambling is a game of chance. There's a risk of loss. That's what gambling is, right? Gaming entertainment is everything that goes around the gambling experience. Right? So it used to be just freestanding casinos, but today, what is there? Hotels, restaurants, shows, as Carson mentioned earlier, musical entertainment, all kinds of things. Yeah, but don't be fooled by that. What is the goal of all of the entertainment? To keep you gambling. Why does the casino have a risk of losing? In some games, not all games. We'll come back to that in a moment. So if the casino has a risk of losing, why do they want you to gamble all the time? Well, but why do they want you to gamble this time even more? They definitely want you to come back. You're right. And they have these loyalty programs that encourage you to come back, right? Just like hotels. Why do they want you to gamble?
They have a higher chance of winning.
They have a higher chance of winning because of the odds. The odds, it's called the edge. The book gives you a good example of the edge with roulette. But you have to realize that the odds are stacked in the casino's favor. Every time. So if you do win, it's lucky. But over time, the longer you play, who's going to win? The casino. I know in your heart you think you can do it, but science, dude, you're a loser. Now, there are two types of gambling. There's pari-mutuel wagering, and there's against the house wagering. Pari-mutuel wagering, against the house wagering. Somebody give me an example of pari-mutuel wagering. Carson?
That'd be like poker, like betting against each other.
Poker, Texas Hold'em, horse racing, dog racing, the lotto. You're not betting against the house. You are betting against other people. All the house is doing in that case is facilitating the gambling. So when you go to a horse race, the people that run the track, they don't care if you win or lose. All they care about is what? No, all they care about is how much is bet. The total handle. The handle is the total amount wagered. On a race or on an event. Sports booking is typically pari-mutuel wagering. Right? Because they take, so let's step back. How does a horse track make money? If they don't win the game, how do they win money? Carson? They have a rake. It's called a rake, R-A-K-E. For every dollar bet, they get so much of it. They also sell food and beverages, right? They sell parking concessions. They have private club memberships to the jockey club. That's how they make money. So all they care about is getting more people there to bet. Because the higher the handle, the more money they make. Do you see that? The lotto. It's the same thing. You're not betting against the government. What are you doing? You're just putting your money into a big pool, and if you happen to guess right, you get the pool. Bingo. Same thing. Keno. Same thing. Another game of chance at a casino. That is pari-mutuel wagering. What?
Big crap.
Not craps. Craps is against the house. Not baccarat, that's against the house. In other words, if you win at baccarat, the house is paying you off. Right? If you're winning at roulette, the house pays you off. If you win at dice, craps, the house pays you off. If you win at blackjack, the house pays you off. If you win at Pai-Gow poker, the house pays you off. If you win at poker, who's paying you off? Not the house. The house takes a rake. All they care about is how many people at the table are betting, how much is bet, because they take 10% of every pot that's wagered. That's how they make money. That's how they pay for the dealer, the air conditioning, the rent, the table, cards, chips, and all of that. But there's one great big pari-mutuel wagering concept that we're kind of missing. It's the most popular form of gambling. Sportsbook is popular, but that's not the one I'm thinking of. We mentioned that earlier. Slot machines, exactly right. Slot machines are all about, it's not against the house. A slot machine pays out a percentage of what's put into it. That's why you'll see slots that say, we pay out 77% or we pay out 87%. Now, doesn't mean you're going to get that back every time you play. It means at one time it's going to come out, right? You got an odds of winning it pretty big. But the more they pay out, the better chance you have of winning. You see that? And then what do they do like the lotto does to encourage people to pay more, to put more money in the slot machine? Say it again. Well, you win a little bit. They keep you there, right? They'll pay you out a little at a time. Very good. What else do they do, though? How many of you don't buy lotto typically? But how many of you will step up and buy lotto when it gets to be $300 million? Raise your hand. Every now and then, it'll entice you to do it, right? I'll take a chance on that. Slot machines do the same thing. They will network slot machines. They call them mega slots. So you'll see 20 slot machines all connected in these casinos, and this is a mega slot. So all these slot machines that are being played, all of that pool of money gets into one, and so you can win $1 million, for instance, when the normal payout might be $5,000. Right? And so that attracts more people than it does if you just can win $5,000. Do you see why? Same kind of thing. Now, how many of you, let's talk about, well, okay. So you have gambling, you have wagers, which are the bets, you have the handle, which is the total amount bet, you have the rake, which is how the gamblers do it, and you have games against the house and pari-mutuel wagering, right? You got all those terms of art? Say yes. All right, what kind of career opportunities are they in casinos? Yes, sir. You can market. That's very good. Who do you want to market to in casinos? Gamblers. What kind of gamblers? High rollers, what they call whales. People that bring a lot of dough, that gamble. Her father, right? He probably belongs to a loyalty program, right? And how do they entice you to come? Why would you join a casino loyalty program?
Give you like 3 nights.
They track you. They track your play. They'll give you free nights in the hotel. They'll give you free nights at the free meals at the restaurant, free shows. If you gamble enough, they'll send their private jet to come pick you up, bring you back. Now, what do you have to do, though, to earn those comps? Because it's not free. What do you have to do? You've got to gamble. You've got to gamble. You gamble, and they'll say to you, okay, we're going to give you 3 nights at the hotel, and we're going to give you a $200 food and beverage credit every day. But You have to be at the blackjack table 5 hours a day, and you have to bet at least $25 per bet. Right? Otherwise, the comps are off, and this is what you'll owe us. They don't care if you win or lose, because they know ultimately you're going to come back and lose. But they just want you to gamble, because they know over time you're going to do what, Carson? You're going to lose. That's what it is, and that's how they entice you. That's how they get you to come out, right? Free stuff. But it's not free. You will pay for it. But you get entertained, and that's why it's called gaming entertainment. Everybody get that? What kind of jobs? Marketing, loyalty programs. What other types of jobs? If you like math, Vegas is a good place for you. Sportsbook, you've got to set odds. Got to set the odds on the game, right? Security is a big aspect of gaming and casino operations. But you have your typical hotel jobs as well. You have typical restaurant jobs, typical nightclub jobs. You could be a casino host, where you host the VIPs and the high rollers. And you're kind of a personal concierge. Get their tickets, make their restaurant reservations, make sure there's a seat at the baccarat table if they want to play. It's exciting. A lot of cool stuff. All right. So gaming is very cool. How did gaming get started in the United States? Don't everybody speak at once. Nevada legalizes, so Las Vegas came about by a guy named, for the most part, Bugsy Siegel. It's a gangster. Out of Chicago or New York, I think. Bugsy got blown to bits over in Beverly Hills because the mob wanted to take over the action. So Las Vegas had a very poor reputation for a long, long time. You know, he went out into the desert, air-conditioned 5,000 square feet. Nobody had ever done that before. And threw in some gambling, some nightclub acts. But then, what made Las Vegas legitimate? What was it? The Mirage Effect? Tell us about that. Yeah, the entertainment side of things, but then what happened was Las Vegas was dying. The Control Act happened, and also, you're talking about the Native American? Yeah, let's talk about that in just a minute. This is still Las Vegas, though. Before that, who started investing in Las Vegas? It was way down. People weren't going. You could pay $19 for the best hotel room in Vegas. Yeah, you go anywhere. But what happened was Hilton bought a hotel in Vegas. And Hilton at the time was a publicly traded company, right? So people knew they had to do things the right way. And then more publicly traded companies started getting into the business. So the reputation became better. Yeah, it wasn't affiliated with the mob. And so that really turned it around. Then exactly what you just talked about, it became more of a gaming entertainment mecca rather than just casino and gambling. And it really made it. Today you go out there and it's really quite remarkable what all goes on out there. You can take a helicopter trip to the Grand Canyon. 30 minutes away, you're in the beautiful Red Rock Canyons. People go to Vegas, and an hour and a half away you can go snow skiing if you want to. And what's going on now in Las Vegas that's going to further legitimize it? Got to connect the dots. It's going to be NFL football in Las Vegas. They have a hockey team, professional sports. Why wasn't professional sports there for a long time? Bad reputation in gambling, right? They didn't want games to be fixed. They didn't want corrupt people being around the players, so they were worried about it. Today, they feel like they have the security apparatus to solve that. So I think the Oakland Raiders are moving to Vegas. And, of course, they have the hockey team, which has done their first year. I think they almost won. They went to the Cup, didn't they? Yeah, the Stanley Cup final. Really remarkable for a first team. Oh, my gosh, crazy. Whole city went berserk. I was out there when it was going on. Nobody was in the casino. Everybody called in sick. Yeah, it was really crazy. Is it the Las Vegas Sharks? No, San Jose Sharks, Las Vegas. Knights, Golden Knights, yeah. Anyway, it's fascinating how that's mixing. And then, of course, you have all the sports book as well out there, which is very interesting. If you haven't ever walked into a sports book at a casino, you should do that. It's a very educational experience. Sportsbook is where people go into. The only legal place to wager on sports in the United States is in Las Vegas. Perhaps Atlantic City. But I think it's mainly Las Vegas. And so everybody does it over the phone with a bookie illegally. Or they do it on the internet. But the only legal place is to be in Vegas, and you go up to a window and you put your bet down just like you would a horse track. But they'll have 50 TVs up there. And they'll have every sporting event you can imagine playing. People will bet on just about anything. They'll bet on wrestling, basketball, football, baseball, and all the odds are different. And there's something you can bet on almost 24 hours a day because it's going on around the world. And people will stay in there all day long and bet. They'll bet on a horse race in Dubai. Then they'll come back and bet on a football game in New York City. It's crazy. It's a big industry. If you're into math, that's a good thing to get into. All right, let's talk about what Chris talked to us about, the Gaming Control Act. So we got Vegas humming along. We got Atlantic City dying for the most part. There was some gambling over there in New Jersey. Atlantic City on the boardwalk there at one time was pretty powerful and big, but it fell down just like Vegas did and couldn't recover. So all of a sudden, what happened? Chris, can you help us? That's the one. That's when it started to happen. What started to happen? What started to happen was there was a federal court that ruled that Native Americans had sovereign rights to their reservation land. Well, if they had sovereign rights in their reservation lands, then federal law did not apply to them, which meant they could have what on their reservation? Gambling. Right? Gambling had been outlawed by the federal government for the longest time. Well, now the federal law didn't apply to reservations, Native American decisions. So they had these compacts, which are just groups of tribes, and they could decide what to do with their land. And if they wanted to have gambling, they could. Totally changed the landscape. So what did the federal government do immediately when that ruling was made? Chris? Well, they started, the states, here's what happened. So if you're in a state and you have an Indian reservation, Native American reservation on your state, and that money is being spent on the reservation, where does all the profit and taxes go? To the reservation, to the Native American Indian. So if you're in the state government, what is your first thought? You say what? Yeah, you want a piece of the pie. So you're like, well, man, if we're going to have gambling, right, we want to participate. So the federal government got involved because they were lobbied by the states. The federal government said, okay, look, whatever type of gambling is going on in the Native American reservations, that can also occur in your state. So that's what they did. So what they did, though, Chris, you're exactly right. The original, like in New Orleans or Illinois outside Chicago, is they put them on boats. And these people would go to great lengths to comply. So they would say, well, it can't be in the state, on state land, so they'd put it 100 feet out in the water. So you'd have a long walkway that you'd have to get out to in order to gamble, right? They started that. Down in Galveston, they started a boat where they had to go, I think it was at least 2 miles off the coast to get out of the territorial waters of Texas for people to gamble. Well, slowly but surely, all of that eroded, and states just said, the hell with it, just gamble. And so now you've got casinos in, I don't know, almost every state. Many of them are done on reservations. How did that come about, though? If you're a Native American compact and you see these states authorizing other types of gaming, what is it you want to do? Well, you go to the state and you go, let's make a deal. Hey, we'll give you some of the action, but don't compete with us. And that's what's been going on. So they make deals. It's all about money. You guys have figured out the lottery is just a tax, right? And who does it tax mainly? Who does the tax burden fall on mostly? What's the demographic of most people that play the lottery? Middle to lower socioeconomic class. So who are we taxing with that? Yeah, the poor. And so you really gotta think from it, and that leads us into the conversation of gambling can bring good things, but can gambling bring, just like tourism, there's a yin and the yang. What are some of the social challenges that gambling brings with it? Don't know how to manage money? Okay? That's probably not, it's a social ill, but not too bad. Oh my gosh, you had $1 million and you only got 50,000 left. Sorry for it. Sorry about that. But definitely happens. What else? Addiction. Gambling addiction is big. Yes. What else? And that's a cost on society, right? What do gambling think? Connect the dots. If somebody has a gambling addiction, just like a drug addiction, more likely then what's going to happen? Break down the family social structure. Perhaps theft to support their habit. Yeah? Okay? They might turn to drugs to help them cope with the stress. Okay? Right. What else? They might lose their home. Yeah? Stress can bring bad health to people. Does crime follow gambling typically? It certainly did early on, not so much today, but it definitely does a lot of the reasons we just talked about with gambling addictions. Yeah, when people get desperate, they do all kinds of things. Yes, ma'am? Getting into debt, exactly right. Yeah. So gambling brings social ills just as it brings money. But is it really creating money? Is there really a productivity involved for a society? Or is it just transferring money from one pocket to another? Rent seeking. Are casinos building anything? Right? They're not. They're not building anything. Are they making anything? No. Are they developing anything? No. All they're doing is what? Transferring money from your pocket to somebody else's. It's wealth transfer. Unless you win. Well, that's all about the multiplier effect like we talked about. And they argue, the casino argues that, hey, we pay a lot of wages. And they do. And they're pretty decent wages. But they also let people smoke in the casinos, so there's serious health challenges for those employees, for all the customers. Yeah, and then you've got all the addiction issues that we talked about. So there's the yin and the yang, and you need to be mindful of that, just like you need to be mindful of tourism. Yes, sir? Areas? Having a non-smoking area in a casino is like having a smoking section and a pee in a swimming pool. Having a peeing section in a swimming pool.
Windstar has like an entire section.
Listen to me again. I screwed it up. I'm going to tell you one more time. Having a smoking section in a casino is like having a peeing section in a swimming pool. How many of you would get in that water? None of you would. right? You can't have a smoking section or a non-smoking area anywhere. If I said to people, okay, that's the smoking section, in about 3 minutes, where's the smoke going to go? Where's it going to go? It's going to go everywhere. You cannot, smoke is a gas. Did you take physics in high school? Smoke is a gas. It penetrates solids. So even if you put somebody in here to smoke, where's the smoke going to go? Next door. If somebody's smoking outside, it's just a matter of time before it comes inside. That's why you can't have smoking rooms in a hotel. If they smoke in one room, where's it going to go? It's going to go there. It's going to go on the next floor. That's why if you don't like smoke, you don't ever stay at a casino hotel. How many of you have stayed at a casino hotel? And how many of you smell like smoke after you left? Yeah, even though you didn't go to the casino. It's awful. It's just poison. If I stood up here with a bottle of poison, how many of you would let me spray it on you? Well, that's exactly what you're doing when you stand around people that smoke or vape. Exactly. Time to shift that dialogue. Somebody had their hand up. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Yeah. Non-smoking. Most states have caught on. Yeah. And you'll find that Vegas has been really slow. They've been fighting that forever. Yes, sir.
Well, when it started non-smoking section, like a separate building.
It's a separate building.
So like,
well, that's good.
Huge. It's like a little there's a hallway that connects it, but it's like a fairly decent hallway.
Yeah. You still smell the smoke going down that hallway. Here's the problem with hotels that say I'm smoke-free. Then what do? Yeah, they don't let people smoke in the hotel, but what do? They hire maintenance people that smoke. They hire housekeepers that smoke. Those people go outside and smoke, and then what do they bring into the guest room? Second, third-hand smoke, right? What's second-hand smoke? Second-hand smoke is it comes out of their mouth and you breathe it in, right? What's third-hand? It's on your clothes, your skin, your hair, and it gets into the chairs. And how many of you have gotten to an Uber where the driver smokes? And you're like, ooh, I got to get out of this car. You're like, turn right. Yeah, you've got to think about this stuff. You guys need to make more progress than my generation did on this stuff. It's a health issue, for sure. I'll defend people's right to smoke all day long, which I won't have to do very long, right? Because they're not going to live. But not around other people. That's just as inconsiderate as you can be. How many of you like the fact that the campus is totally tobacco-free? Yeah. And vape-free, by the way. Yeah. So there's still people that vape, but you need to gently remind them. It takes a village. You just got to gently remind them that the whole campus is smoke and vape-free. Yeah, I had a professor ring me up the other day and said a kid was vaping in the classroom. He was trying to do it like this. I had a kid the other day. I pulled into the garage, and there was a guy down there vaping in the garage. And I said, hey, man, I said, just a reminder, right? The whole campus is smoke and vape-free. He goes, that's why I'm down here hiding. I said, no, you're missing the point. He goes, who are you, the police? I go, no, I'm the guy that created the policy. I said, so I'm not the guy you want to tell that to. He goes, whoops. Yeah. He goes, okay, my bad. I go, yeah. He was an employee. I said, you're an employee? He goes, yeah, but don't tell anybody. I go, yeah, right. All right. So just gently remind them. Listen, it's so much better than it ever was. And they're going to be, look, in your life you're going to learn that a few people try to screw it up for everybody else. Right? But you just got to gently remind them. You know, don't hit them over the head with anything. But I do think it's important that people speak up. And I think we're doing a better job today of marketing it to incoming students and people in the dorms and things like that. It's been a tough road. We had a couple of people that were very obstinate in the central administration of the university in terms of marketing the band. But we're getting better now. Those people have moved on. And those people were smokers, right? And so it was challenging. It was challenging, but you gotta persevere. All right, that's gambling. Any questions? Go tell your parents you learned how to gamble in class today. All right, so Thursday, we're going to be talking about events. Those of you that are interested in events, we're going to be talking about special events. And it's a cool topic. Make sure you read, do your post. We've got a nice, easy week. Don't drink and drive. Don't gamble. Don't text and drive. Don't ever get drunk and text. Carson, dude, you're going to fall big time, buddy boy. Oh, hey, one last thing. Listen up, Mr. Orange Shirt. Between now and the end of the semester, let's do things a little differently. When we come into class, we're going to stay in the class. Right? When we plan. You need to learn how to plan. You come in the class, you stay in the class. You stay awake in the class. That's self-discipline. We're going to practice being an adult between now and the end of the semester. Everybody good? Let's commit to that. See you later. Go have fun. Oh, Sensei wants your papers. You owe her papers.
So I guess maybe I'm thinking like, you go into the Venetian and it's so huge.
Sometimes you don't smell it.
All the lobbies and all those areas are not smoking, but the casino floor
is smoking. No, you're exactly right. But here's the thing. You can still smell it in the lobby. You can still smell it in the elevator. You can say, you've just got to realize that smoke is a gas. It's going to travel everywhere. And that's the point. Look.
Well, that's why I work in the restaurant too, so non-smoking now, but...
Hey! Christian's back! Yeah. Well, keep thinking like that. Because you're
way better thought. I used to bartend at all the Pappas restaurant used to have smoking in the bar.
That's right.
So when I started there, I used to go smoke in the bar, and I remember like bartending and like leaving like...
Perfect.